go through things. Again, this is going to be largely based upon season management in the profile tab. So we're going to look at things like, registrations and building a schedule and things of that nature. And just kind of see what we've got going on there. And we'll see what we can find. So again, sharing my screen. And there we go. So we'll start here with this dashboard page. This dashboard page is the primary page you come to when you initially log in. I'm just going to highlight some of the things on here before we move forward. First off, it's mainly used for navigation. So you've got season management here on the bottom of the screen that pairs with the season management tab on the left. So two different ways to get to the same place. Race management is here as well. The profile tab will be the button that looks like your track logo up here. Most folks have their track logo for the profile image. You might do something different, but that's generally the same thing. And then web management tools are down here as well. Website goes to the globe over here. As we scroll down this page, first thing I want to highlight here is the app favorites. So this is how many people have gone to the MyRacePass app and favorited your tracker series. And the advantage for them doing so is they'll get push notifications on their device when you guys do a news release, when your races start, when your fantasy groups are open, if you have a cancellation, things like that. So they'll get push notifications on their device telling them, hey, this track released their schedule today. Here's a news article about it, things of that nature. There is subscription information on this screen as well. So you'll be able to see the current subscription details, although we're going to cover that more in depth when we get to the profile tab. And the last thing I want to highlight on this screen is I want to highlight the sandbox. Sandbox is a siloed environment that's a direct copy of all of your live environment data. So you can use that for things like testing lineup schemes or, seeing how different buttons react or, things like that. Anything that you want to test but not have it affect your live environment, go to the sandbox. Sandbox is where you can do to run practice events and things of that nature. From there, though, I'll jump to this profiles tab. Profiles is where you can, is where you can adjust information that folks will see in the app about your facility. Before we move forward, I want to let everybody know that there's a chat function here. It's on the right-hand side or on the bottom of your screen. There's a chat bubble. As I'm going through this, if you've got any questions, I'll ask for questions from time to time. So if you want to shout them out at that time, you can. Otherwise, if you've got quick questions pertaining to something going on, if you put it in chat, I'm going to have Dakota monitor the chat, and he'll be able to answer the questions that you've got as they come up. So don't be afraid to ask questions, whether you shout them out or put them in chat, and we'll be able to get to them. But as I jump into this profile tab here, the first thing that you're going to be able to see is options to update your images. So you want to update the profile image or the header image, you can do that here. And you can also edit your profile. That takes you to this profile tab down here. And this profile tab will, this is the information that folks are going to see in the app about your facility. So I go into the app, I search your favorite track, which is my demo profile. This is the information that I'm going to see. So the track length, the track shape, that kind of stuff. Any description information you want in there. There's also an address option in here. Physical address, mailing address, any contact you want them to be able to see, all that stuff is in there. And then there's Google Maps here. And this will give people directions to your facility. So you want to make sure this is accurate. You want to make sure that this is pointed at your racetrack. And then this will allow folks to get directions to your facility right there in app, which is pretty nice. Now, none of that stuff is ever really going to change, more than likely. Unless you physically pick the racetrack up and move it somewhere else, that'll pretty much always stay the same. This track features section is the thing that I like to kind of consider once a year stuff. As you make changes or updates or improvements to your facility, some of this stuff might change. It's just basically a list of amenities that you're going to have in the app. So, for camping, if you're going to, what kind of camping options you're going to have. Do you have ATMs on site? That kind of stuff. For pits, same thing. Do you sell fuel? Do you sell tires? All that kind of stuff. Now, I know that we're in the dirt track racing world, so I know that invariably people are going to ask you questions in Facebook Messenger anyway. But at least this way, if people do have the app, some folks might be able to some folks might be able to answer their own questions and that kind of stuff. So, if it's another area, it's another place where you've got things that are available to give people information about what you're trying to do there. and it's good to have that updated. The other option on this page is aliases. So if your tracker series was ever known by a different name, you can add that old name as an alias. That way, if somebody goes into the app and searches for that old name, it'll still bring them to the right profile. So, that works out pretty good in terms of funneling folks where they're supposed to go. Then at the very bottom of the screen, there's an edit name city option. So if your racetrack is changing its name, if you're changing the name to your track, you can edit name city here and edit the name of the racetrack. Again, edit city is probably not going to come into play very often, but theoretically it could. But this is where you can go in and edit that information. Next tab here is billing. And billing is going to kind of show you what you would expect the billing page to show you. First off, you can change the card on file up here. If you want to change the card on file, view your current subscription information, including the next time that it will bill. It'll show up here as well. You can view and print all of your previous invoices. So if these all come up as PDF, click on a link for your invoice. You can see everything that it's for. This invoice section will also show you payments for the website. So it'll show you race management payments and website payments. So you'll be able to bring up any invoice and print it off and see what it's for. And then there's also all access accounts here. This is a fairly new feature in this billing page. So maybe, some of you guys might not have seen it yet. But here is where you can add free all access subscriptions in the app, depending on what type of account you have. If you've got the base plus plan, you can give out 2 of them. The next plan up, the platinum, you can give out 4 of them, and then your partner plan, you can give out 6. So either 2, 4, or 6 free app subscriptions. Now those are like a $55 value yearly. So giving those out, you're pretty much making back $100 of your subscription just by not having to pay for the app. So it's valuable. You can get your scorers in there, your track owners in there, your announcers in there. It's an all access to everything in the app. To give you guys some information about how the app works, if you don't know, the app is free to download, and you'll be able to get entries, lineups, and results, as well as all the track profile information for free in the app. All that stuff is free. The add-ons start with live timing and scoring. It's our basic subscription. It's basically $8 a year, give or take, depending on tax, $8 a year, and that's live timing and scoring. And then the all access subscription will allow you to play fantasy as well. That's the big, that's the big draw for fans to get that all access subscription. That'll get you live timing and fantasy and insider points information for sanctioning bodies and things of that nature, as well as unlock all the driver profiles. So there's a couple of different options there. Just wanted to let you know that the app itself is free. Lineups and results are free. When you start getting into live timing and scoring, that's where the costs come into. Profiles tab is this users area. Users is where you're adding administrators to your account. So you're giving people access or removing access to your profile. You can see that there's a role drop down here. There is no built-in permissions into MyRacePass. There's 2 options here for user role. The first one is standard admin. It's a light switch. You flipped it on. This person can log in and do things. The second role is site member. Now you flipped it off. This person can't log in and do. You're not flipping that person off, but you're flipping the light switch off. You've removed their access. I guess you could do both. But either way, they're either a site member or standard admin. If you've got a scorer that has left your facility, change it to site member. They can't log in anymore. To add a member to the screen, it's just using this add member option. And I can come over here and I can search for them based off of the email address associated with their MyRacePass account. So if I'm going to go ahead and add myself, I can next my way through this and link the account and just make sure now that that person has the user role that you want them to have. So I can change that to standard admin and we're in good shape. We're good to go there. Removing this now. Again, I can change it to site member if I need to. The other thing here is if you add somebody's email address and they do not currently have a MyRacePass account, it will send them an invite to create one. And they have 48 hours to act on that. Now, you can come in here and you can resend the invite if need be. If they didn't act on it the first time, they're like, okay, I'm ready to get in this. You can resend the invite for them. But just so you're aware, it sends them an invite automatically to create an MRP account. And that's basically everything in the profile tab. Pretty straightforward stuff, pretty simple stuff there. There are no built-out user permissions, so again, you won't see anything in the permissions tab. Clear cache is a developer tool, so only Dakota and myself will see that. But is there anything that any of you guys have any questions about regarding this profile tab before we jump into season management? Cool. Jump into season management here next. And now we're to the point where we're creating our season. We're creating a year. We're creating a schedule. We're putting in registrations, those types of things. So the first thing to remember here is the very top of the screen. If you still have 2021 up here, you have to create your new season. Create a new season right here. For me, it would try to push me to 23 because I already have a 22. But a season and a schedule are different. A season here at this point is just a calendar year, Jan 1 to December 31. Unless you're tuning in from Australia or New Zealand, which we have tracks there. I don't think anybody here is, though. Then we can do some different things playing with that date range. Otherwise, it's just Jan 1 to December 31. And we can go ahead and add that. And that brings us to this configuration tab. Configuration is where we're adding the series and the classes that are going to be racing at your track throughout the course of that season, that calendar year. We add them here first to configuration so that when we're adding events to the schedule, these are the options that we'll have to choose from. It's most efficient in this screen to add the series first. If you're a series, this will look a little bit different. You'll add the tracks here on this screen, and then the class that's associated with your series will be built in automatically, and obviously your series will be built in automatically. So all you'll have to worry about is the tracks. But if I'm a racetrack, I'm going to add my series and then my classes. The reason is this. When I go in to add a series, I can add any series that I want. So if I add Comp Cam Super Dirt Series, I can do that. What's going to happen is it's going to look like there's an error message on the screen, but it's not an error. It's just telling you, hey, this class requires Dirt Super Late Models. So we're going to add that at the same time. So when I continue, it added Comp Cam Super Dirt Series. It also added, in my giant class list that I've got here, Super Late Models. It added it somewhere in here. I swear it did. Yeah, there it is. They're late models. Perfect. So it's telling you that you've got to add that class at the same time. So adding the series first is most efficient because it will add your classes along with, or it'll add the class associated with that series at the same time. Once we get into the season classes, then it's a matter of finding out if your track is sanctioned or not, adding the sanctioned classes first, and then going from there and adding the out-of-the-box classes. So when I go to add classes, the first thing I'll go to is the sanctioned class option. So WISSOTA, IMCA, USRA, stuff like that. Dirt Car is one we've recently added. I didn't have a built-in training session specifically for Dirt Car, but Dirt Car, you would come to add your classes here. We've also recently added Power I. That's a new sanctioning body that exists out there as well. Heart non-wing micros, we literally got done building this week. So there's a lot of sanctionings that are showing up. So you got to make sure, you got to see if your classes are sanctioned or not. And if they're sanctioned, choose the correct sanction class. The reason for that is when they go to calculate their national points or their regional points or their state points or whatever else, the way that they know whether or not to take the points from your racetrack or not is if you're using a sanctioned class. So you throw the sanctioned class in there, and that tells WISSOTA or USRA or Power I or Heart or whoever, okay, this show is a sanctioned show, and I can go in there and I can decide in sanction management if I'm going to accept the points from this or not. But if you're not using the correct sanction classes, that's not going to make that link is never going to happen. Your track is never going to have sanctioned points correctly if you're not using the right classes. So if I'm a Power I track, I go in here, I hit next. I can add the whatever classes from Power I want. I can add them. Now they're showing up on my list. Now it comes to the point where we've got non-sanctioned classes. I add classes. Then I can just choose all classes instead of sanctioned classes. And, I'll choose my stock cars. And then I can add the out-of-the-box, whatever class I want. I've got a lot of asphalt classes in here. You can add enduro cars, factory stocks, unsanctioned hobby stocks, outlaw. There's a lot of stuff in there. Ton of class options to choose from. Just make sure if you're running a non-sanctioned event, you're using non-sanctioned classes. If you're running a sanctioned event, you're running sanctioned classes. If there is any one thing I want you to take away from tonight's training, it's to make sure you're using the correct classes. From there, I can edit the names of the classes. If I go up into settings, I can choose manage classes. I've got a list of all of the class options that I have. I can change the name of my classes. So I added the Hornets class. We don't have front wheel drives as a class built into the program, but you want to call them front wheel drives, you add Hornets, you type front wheel drive into the name override. Now on your profile for your entries and your lineups and your results and everywhere anybody sees anything for you, it'll say front wheel drive. This also works great with class sponsors. You want to give your class sponsors some app impressions, this is the way to do it. So instead of my super stocks, I can have my Bob's Garage super stocks. Instead of my 410 wing sprint cars, I can have my 410 wing sprint cars fueled by Casey's. I can do those types of things. So changing the name of the class and adding a class sponsor, manage classes is the way to do that. So now I've got all my classes added. The next step is this events tab, because now I want to create my schedule and add events to my schedule. There are a couple of different reasons where you can have multiple schedules in one year. It's rare, but it does come up. The primary reason to have multiple schedules in one season is if you're a traveling series like ASCS, and I've got my national tour, and I've got my, Frontier Region tour, and I've got my Northern Plains tour, and I've got my Mid-Ohio tour, and whatever regional tour. They have all of those regional tours set up into different schedules. So if that's something that applies to you, the Red Clay Series of the Southeast does something similar, that kind of stuff. For a racetrack, it comes into play when you have multiple points calculations going on at one time. There's an asphalt track in Michigan that I use as an example for this. They've got a 20-race schedule for all of their classes, but then they have 6 races broken out that have their own points champion at the end of those 6 races for their late models as well. So they've got their schedule for their regular series or their regular events, and then they've got their second schedule for the Big 6 series. That's one reason. Another reason to have multiple schedules is if you're running a multi-day event over the course of 1 week or a weekend, and the last night of that event, you're calculating your lineups based off of the points earned from the first 2. You can make that special multi-day event into its own season. That way it can calculate points those first 2 nights, and it can apply the points for the lineups the last night of championship night. You can have an event be a part of multiple schedules. So you can have one event earn points for multiple schedules at one time as well. That's kind of the reason to have more than one schedule. Adding a new schedule is fairly straightforward. You're just basically adding and renaming the schedule. So I'll add new schedule. There it is. And now I can add an event to that new schedule. Adding events, also extremely straightforward. If I'm going to run the first 3 Saturdays in May, I can select the first 3 Saturdays in May, and I can hit next. Now what you're doing in this screen is you're adding the classes that are going to be a part of that event. So I can add, my stock cars, my sport compacts, and my 410s. Call it good. I can go name my event, put in any description information that you want, and then put in your times. So we'll say my pits will open at 4. My gates will open at 5, I'll say. My hot laps will start at 6. And my racing starts at 7. That's what I'll do here for this. So I've got my classes, I've got my name, I've got my description and all that kind of stuff, my times. Difference between name and description is when you go in to look at your schedule on your website, your schedule on the app, on your profile, whatever else, what you're going to see is all of the event names in chronological order. And then when you click on a specific event, that's where you're going to see the details information box come up. So, that's where you'd put in any information about that race that you want people to see. If there's, a county fair in town, if there's, $2 beers, if whatever you want people to see, purse information, ticket information, whatever else. But if I go to hit add and next, now it takes me from 5/7 to 5/14. Okay, I'm putting in my 5/14 event. I can name it. C for socks. Maybe if I can learn to type, I can name it. The classes are sticky, so I can still go in and edit the class information, but it'll remember what I picked event over event. Same thing with the times information. Again, I can edit this, but again, add and next. And you can start to see where adding an entire schedule can go pretty quickly because those things are sticky. You're just basically putting in the information you want folks to see. And there I added 3 events at one time over the course of 3 Saturdays in May. So we're all set and good to go there. So now I've got my schedule created. The next step will be registrations. Registrations is a way to gather driver information before your season starts. So this is not the same as entering them into an event. It's just gathering their information beforehand. So things like their address, their contact information, all the same stuff for a car owner if there's a car owner, emergency contact, their transponder number, the number of years that they've raced, if they're a rookie. Golly, there's a lot of other stuff in there, car number, jacket size. There's just a lot of stuff in registration. Pretty much, all the information that you would need outside of a social security number or a tax ID. We do not track social security number because we have an online server. For security purposes, we don't do that. So you still have to have them fill out a W-9 or whatever else. There's a couple of different types of registration that exist. There's a yearly annual registration is what it sounds like. You have them register once a year. Easy, straightforward, simple to understand. There are event-based registrations. So if you want to tie a registration to a specific event and take pre-entries for that race, you can have an event-specific registration as well. And then there is a general registration we have keyed in as well. General registration we have kind of built in thinking for non-racing events, things like a banquet or a pit party or something like that. If you want to tie that registration to something so you know who's showing up, you can absolutely do that as well. So when I go in and I create a registration, there are a couple of different options that you have available to you. First off, you can charge for registration. So if you have a membership fee or a registration fee or something like that, you can charge for it. And we send you that money immediately when someone registers. We don't take any fees out of it at all. It is a flow through. They register, we take the payment, we send it directly to your PayPal account. Again, we don't make any money off of that. We just want to make it easier for you to get this data from these people. You can charge different amounts for late fees as well. So if I was going to charge, $20 to register, and after a certain date, now it's $25, I can put in a late fee of $5. Same thing for different classes. You can charge different amounts for different classes as well. So if my sport compacts are $20 and my 410s are $40, I can put a $40 in here, and we're good to go there. So I can charge different amounts for different classes, late fees for different classes, things of that nature. So a lot of things that you can do there, a lot of freedoms that you have in registration. The last thing that I can show you here is this download section. This is becoming increasingly popular. And this is a fairly new feature. 1 year ago at this time doing these webinars, this did not exist. So this is fairly new. Anything that you want the drivers to have in their hands outside of our registration form, you can put in here as a download. When a driver registers, they'll get a confirmation email. Anything that you have here in downloads will show up as an attachment on that confirmation email. So they'll have it in their hands. You want to put a W-9 in here? You want to put a minor release form in here? You want to put your track schedule? You want to put, notes for announcers? Whatever you want to put in here, anything that you want the drivers to have in paper. And that way, theoretically, we know these are race car drivers, so I'm not saying they will, but theoretically, all of them could fill that stuff out and bring it to the back gate opening night to save them time and save you time on that, high anxiety, high stress, lots to do opening night at the back gate. A lot of people are taking advantage of this, guys. I can't tell you. Almost every registration that I've set up for this year for a racetrack, they call me and they say, help me set up my registration. Make sure that I can get them this paper form too. Almost every single one. So if this is something you want your drivers to have, this is a great way to get it to them without having to worry about handing it to them at the back gate, having them fill it out, and have everybody that comes to the back gate opening night spend 20 minutes at your window. Make your life more efficient. Make your life more efficient. Do it this way. Now, in terms of from a driver perspective, what this registration looks like. Let me see if I can find one. There we go. I'll do this test and tune registration. You can share the link to your registration to social media right here. And then you can, this is also just a direct link to your registration so you can see what it looks like. But I'll fill one out so you can see what it looks like from a driver perspective. Literally, your drivers can do this in 30 seconds. Sport Compact, new competitor. It will save all of the data from all of my previous registrations in here. So I filled out a registration for this one earlier today. Continue. My name's in here, my address, my zip, my contact information. If I've got a nickname, all that kind of stuff is in here. If there's an owner, I can fill out all the same information for the owner information. The car numbers that you want, the number of years that you've raced, if you're a rookie or not, your transponder, emergency contact, continue. So if a driver has filled out registrations in the past, every registration they fill out, again, moving forward, will take them no time flat. I can confirm this is correct. I agree to the terms. I complete the registration. That driver is now registered. They can do that from their mobile device. You put the link on Facebook. They click the link on Facebook from their phone. We literally at Jackson, where I work, will have drivers sit in their haulers waiting to get to the pit gate, quickly registering on their way to the race. Like, it takes them no time to do this, and you get all the information that you need. So now as I come back to this screen, I'll be able to see, I did that for test and tune, didn't I? Yeah. So in Sport Compacts, I have a pending registration. So I'll confirm the registration. I will attach it to a driver profile. My driver profile is here. From this screen, you can also create a new driver profile if you can't find the guy. Okay, the number that he said he requested was 23. Put in 23. Do we have all of the paper forms that we put in downloads that we need from him? Yes or no? In this case, probably not. So I'll confirm. I can come back and recheck that box later on. I can come in here and I can edit the registration to see all of the registration info and recheck that has all forms box later on. So you can track if they've turned in paper forms outside of MRP. When I go to enter the driver into an entry list, there will be an indicator to show you if they've registered or not, and there will be an indicator to show you if they've turned in these forms, so you know what you still need from these drivers. So just, we give you these tools to track this stuff with. Maybe it's efficient for you, maybe it's not. There's a lot of stuff that you can take advantage here. But that's basically the process of registration. There's a lot that has to do with registration, so I want to make sure that I field any questions about that specific topic here and now before I move on to points and payments. So does anybody have any questions about the process of registration or anything like that? If you do have any questions about this or anything, send them to support@myracepass.com. And if you say, okay, that sounds great, but how do I apply this to my facility? Myself, Dakota, we can reach out to you. We can answer the questions that you've got about your individual racetrack. We can make sure that it all makes sense and you guys are going where you want to go. From there, I'll jump into points. The points page really just kind of shows you what you would expect a points page to show you. The events, the features, the wins, the top fives, all that kind of stuff. This earnings column off to the right is not publicly available anywhere. So no one will ever be able to see what your drivers are earning. You'll also be able to flip this at the top of the screen to the different schedules that you've got available to you. I don't know if there's any other schedule that I've actually applied points to before. Apparently not. There we go. So we did. So yeah, we've got points here on this schedule. If you need to flip to a different class, you can flip to a different class up here as well. So it all kind of makes sense and shows up and all that's well and good. If you click on the name of a driver, and let me actually get to a class we run more often. If I click on the name of a driver, I can audit this information on a night-to-night basis. So, okay, 316, what happened there? Somebody comes to you and says, I need to know what happened 316. So on 316, I finished 10th. So I got 10 points, and I made $100 off of that. We didn't pay points for heat races. We paid 50 show-up points. So I got 60 points total. So you can audit all of this stuff for each driver on a night-by-night basis. A couple of other buttons that exist in here. You come into this screen, you say, my goodness gracious, on 316, Austin Lloyd wasn't there, but we gave all the points and pay to this guy. We put him in the entry list, and he wasn't supposed to be there. You can replace competitor, and you can put in any name that you want to put in and just replace the entry, the lineup, the results, all of the data, all the points, all the pay to a different driver on the list. So if you entered the wrong guy and you find out weeks later, you can come in here and you can fix that. You can also hit this edit button over there to take you to the points and pay tab for that individual night. So again, I can come in here and I can edit and okay, this guy was supposed to get 10 bonus points that night and we missed it. I can add the 10 bonus points. There we go, resave. And now when I go back, to the point screen, the 10 bonus points for that driver will be put in there. So you can edit in this information. You can audit this information, everything you need to do that way by clicking on the name of a driver. Conversely, you can switch this over to owner points. You can calculate owner points for any schedule. So it'll show you the owner information here as well. As we scroll down this page, there is a couple of options here. One will say included events. So if there's an event, any event that you've got calculated points for this schedule, they'll all show here. These are all the events that are included in that points tally. There's also a non-points events. So if you've got any event that you did not calculate points for, it'll show down here as well. And then championship settings exists here as well. Championship settings is something that's only available on the partner plan. So if this is something that's going to apply to you, we'll have to talk. But it's the ability to change or customize how the championship is going to work. So that could be something like throwaway nights. If you're running 20 nights throughout the course of the year, you're going to throw away their worst 2 and only take their top 18 nights. This is where you tell the program, hey, throw away their worst 2 nights or their best night or whatever. Also, if you've got more than one class combining into one points championship, you can do that here as well. If the date is already locked, Sally, you'll have to send an unlock request to us to make that happen. Our events lock after 2 weeks. And like anything, there's always a reason that happened. We had a situation where a disgruntled scorer got fired, went in, made a bunch of changes where they weren't authorized or allowed to, screwed a bunch of stuff up. So now, after 2 weeks, we lock the events to make sure that doesn't happen. And adding a point scheme to a specific race, I'll get into the point schemes, but you can go up here to settings. You can add points/pay schemes. And when you go to calculate your points and pay on each race night, you just pick the scheme that applies to that night. Like I said, we'll get into that as well. Moving forward to the championship settings, multiple classes. You can also have age-specific championships as well. So if you've got like a seniors-only championship or a young guns teenagers championship, something like that, you can have the program calculate that points championship as well. It also will allow for a rookie standing, but I'll tell you, the only way a driver can tell you that they're a rookie in MyRacePass is through registration. So if you're going to have a rookie standing, you have to have them registered through MyRacePass, and you can turn on the rookie point standing here in championship settings. So if those are the things that are going to apply to you, could be a reason to take a look at that. The payments tab exists here as well. Now, next week, when we go through the race management part of this, we'll take a deeper dive into the payments tab, but I'll show you the basics of it now. This is where you're tracking the purse payments that you give to drivers for each class for each race night that you run. So on Sport Compacts on 1/6 was the event date. And come in here, I can look at how much they were owed based off of race management, how much they were paid. If you're going to give them a bonus or something like that, you can change the payout amount here. You can do a couple of things from this area. You can create checks, which again, we'll cover this more in depth, but you can print checks from here. You can print a report from here that allows drivers to sign for their checks if that applies. You can print mailing labels if you've got their addresses and you are going to mail out your checks during the week after the races. You can print mailing labels. And then you can export all of this information to QuickBooks as well. So keep in mind that's here also. Last thing I've got for you here is fantasy. Fantasy is something that we're really, really, really working to have racetracks take ownership of. You might have seen it last year. We had a bunch of these fantasy challenges over like Super Nationals and Minnesota 100 and, Showdown Week with the sprint cars, just different stuff about once a month. And it did really good. And I think if tracks started to think in that mold, it could do really well for tracks too. So the basics of fantasy, the picks existing in the app, well, if you've got an entry list, then your picks will be available. Fans can go in and make those picks. They'll accumulate points based off where those drivers finish. They'll have a point standing at the end so they can see who won or lost on a nightly basis and on a year-long basis. That all happens automatically. There's nothing you have to do to make fantasy work. It just does. As long as the fan has the prerequisite all-access account in the app, fantasy is going to work. The things that you can do to kind of augment their experience is you can do two different things. You can change the name of your fantasy group, again, both on a nightly and on a year-long basis. So you've got a marketing partner. You want to sell them app impressions as a way to, help them get in the door. You can absolutely do that. You can have your Bob's Garage Fantasy Challenge for your late models and have that be a nightly thing or an all-year thing, however you want to do that. So again, you can sell app impressions through fantasy through the naming rights. The other thing you can do in fantasy is you can give away prizes. This is what gets fans excited about MyRacePass Fantasy. It can be anything from we had at Jackson last year a yellow VP Racing fuel jug. We had all the A main starters sign it. And it cost us $15, and we had probably 100 more fantasy participants than what we would have had if we didn't have a prize. I've seen people give away like WWE style fake championship belts. I've seen people give away, subscriptions to whatever streaming service does your races. Actually, I saw a sanctioning body last year recognize their fantasy champions at their banquet as well. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do here. But fantasy, in essence, is a way to capture your audience and to keep your audience engaged in what you're doing, whether they're at the track or at home. This is a fan engagement tool, guys. Fans, let's face it, my age, I'm in my 20s, maybe only for another couple months, but I am still in my 20s. I can promise you that. Fans my age are going to be on their phones more than likely. Do you want them looking at Facebook or their fantasy baseball lineup or whatever? Or do you want them engaged in what you're doing at your racetrack? Because for, basically, like I said, a $15 fuel jug that you have the A-main starter sign or something like that, you can get these folks engaged in what you're doing, paying attention to your drivers, making picks from anywhere. I'll tell you that if they're on location at your facility, they get bonus points for being at your racetrack. So the folks supporting you have a better shot to win. But again, it's a fan engagement tool. It's something that we're excited about. And I know that on the third session on March 30, Chris is our lead sales guy for Tracks and Series. He's got an entire presentation related to fantasy. But it's something that I'm excited about. I know that I'm a track announcer by trade, so just more stuff that I can yell into a microphone, of course, makes me excited. But if it makes me excited, it makes your announcer more excited too. Do you want your announcer giving away lucky number program prizes where he can sound bored reading 4 numbers out of a program every night? Or do you want him talking about this? These fantasy standings can also be something that's pushed to your broadcaster, so your broadcaster can start putting the standings on TV too. And that's a valuable tool as well. But I'll get off. That kind of sounded salesy, so I apologize for that. But it's an option that's available to you. The next thing here is suspensions. Our sanctioning bodies have access to suspension management. So IMCA, USRA, WSOTA, whatever else, they can suspend drivers. We don't have it built out for individual tracks and series yet, so you won't see anything here. And that's season management, you guys. That's, configuring your season, creating your schedule, your registrations, your points, and your fantasy stuff. I am open to fielding any questions that anybody has about any of that stuff right here. I got 3 of these. We go one a week, basically. So next week, the 23rd, again, same time, same day of the week, March 23, we'll look at race management. We'll look at connecting MRP Live to your scoring system, event setup, lineup options, results, points and pay schemes, like we've mentioned, as well as calculating your points and pay in the payments tab. So we'll kind of go through what you're doing on race day next week. But this was a look at setting up your season, preparing for race day, preparing for your season as well, all that kind of stuff. The third session, we're going to look at some of the extra stuff like website tools, online tickets, reserve tickets, news articles, the contact list in your reports, things of that nature. But guys, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time here tonight. I know that this is time away from your families, away from your daily lives, away from your after-hours stuff. So you guys making that sacrifice to learn a little bit more about how to use MyRacePass makes me feel good, makes all of us feel good, and we just appreciate the heck out of it. I will say, if you are going to have any questions that you think of after the fact, I'm going to type our support email address into the chat, support@myracepass.com. Feel free to send the information there. The recording will be on our YouTube page. youtube.com/MyRacePass. It'll also be on that promoter training page. You'll see the join webinar link turn into a watch webinar. So whether it's YouTube or there, you'll see it there. I got a hand raised. Sally, do you have a question?
Yeah, will you go over any type of the reward systems and stuff for using the live scoring and schedule and so forth?
So the reward stuff exists now, but I really kind of glossed over it here because at some point this year it's going to change. We're going to add some options. We're going to tweak the way some options work. It's been a real topic of conversation here at MyRacePass for the last week. So any of the reward stuff that you meet this year, you'll still get credit for. So again, if you add 10 events to your schedule and connect live timing and scoring for 70% of those events, $50 off of next year's bill. If you add online tickets to 70% of your event, sell $300 worth of tickets throughout the course of the year, $50 off of next year's bill. If you have an apparel item in our marketplace and you sell a certain number of apparel items, I forget how many it is, $50 off of next year's bill. But again, that stuff is going to be altered and added to as this season goes on. That's kind of the next thing on the list to really change. So I don't want to cover it too much because if I cover it here, it's just not going to be accurate by the time we're going to pay that stuff out.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Cool. Well, again, I appreciate the time, everybody. I'm going to go hang out with my kids. So I will talk to you all this time next week.